Welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to start creating a lifestyle by design. From entrepreneurship, money and finance, taxes and residencies, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a true global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. Zack, welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm so excited for this conversation we're going to have. It's literally going to be all things work, wealth, and travel. But before we dive in, I want to hear a little bit more about you, your story, your journey, where you started, and how you got to where you are today, which is in beautiful Medellin, Colombia.
Yeah, so everything started on a small farm in Northwest Indiana. I grew up on a strawberry farm. My dad passed away when I was 12. I took over the farm, and I had zero value in education. I hated high school. I hated all of that stuff. I just wanted to work on the farm. And then I graduated, and I was like, what's going on? Like, life sort of hit me. And I picked up a book by Peter Lynch, and it was about investing and buying businesses. And I sort of got open to this world of finance. And so I went to college for finance, graduated at the top of my class for that. Went into the workforce, worked almost 3 years for free because it was 2008 when I graduated, and everyone was struggling then. Finally landed a job working for one of the best companies in the world. Dream job, what I thought, 6 figures plus, bonus, vacation, became a published author in that, and I hated it. It's like something I worked like it probably took me 8 years to get there, and I got there and I was just scared. I was like, this is going to be it. This is it. And somebody invited me down to real estate community, and I joined that, got serious about it, was able to quit my job, focused on real estate, build up a very big, successful community instead of that, bought my first business. And it was funny because I was doing all of this to travel. So I had 3 primary intentions: travel the world, help people, and make a lot of money. And so I was working towards that. And what I found was the more successful I got, the more I was tied to the office, more I was tied to everything. And so I was doing meetings twice a week. I had about 200 to 300 people every Wednesday at an in-person live mastermind in-person live meeting for my masterminds. And then every Saturday we would go out to an investment property and show off sort of the strategy there. And so I was the guy, and I couldn't leave that. And COVID came, and it pushed everything online. And I remember sitting in we moved everything to Zoom within a couple of days. And so we kept the momentum going. And I remember one day I said, hey, honey, we don't have to be here, to my wife. I said, let's go somewhere, because I've always wanted to travel. And so every place was shut down. We went to Hawaii. No one was there. And so we lived out there for about 4 months, loved it, came back to the mainland. And then we just picked up and we came to Colombia. That was our first phase. Stayed for about 4 months, then Peru, and we just started going. And over the last 4 years, we lived in 24 countries. And, whenever it was because of COVID that I've actually started traveling, which is really weird because most people, it was the opposite. And so, we've just been sort of figuring out the last 4 years, and we've figured it out quite well. And we've created a machine that is replicatable, and now we replicate it in other people's businesses.
Interesting. Definitely want to dive into that. But before we do, you mentioned something interesting there to me, and I was actually listening to a podcast last night, and he was talking about how and it reminds me a little bit of what you just said here, where he started this business and he didn't really know what he was doing. He just kind of jumped into it. And I think that is what a lot of people would see as imposter syndrome. So I'm curious, in your journey in building up all of these successful businesses, and kind of just like leaving the corporate world and like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm in these masterminds. Like, did you have that sense of imposter syndrome when you first started, and what did that look like?
I would say yes. That was one of the biggest fears. And what I did to sort of get over that fear was I joined a community. And so I was a student in a mastermind, and there was very advanced people in there, and I just sort of rode their coattails. So I was bringing them value. And what I did first was I got educated. And it helps that I came from the corporate world of finance. And so we were buying and selling businesses. I had a very deep level of finance, which was very valuable to this new community I was in. And so I had a lot of business acumen. I just didn't know how to make money. And I didn't know the marketing and the sales component of it. The deal is, I found somebody that was doing it and was actually successful at it. And then I became like their understudy. They would say, hey, go find this. And then I would bring it back and I say, okay, hey, I got this. And they would say, it's good or it's bad or give me some coaching, go find it. And it was all marketing, right? It was go find a deal. Go find somebody with a problem around real estate so I can help solve that problem, my mentor. And then I got to ride the coattails of it and got to see the paperwork and all that transaction. We did a handful of those. I made a little bit of money. And then I worked into my first deal. And then it was like, oh, that was easy. Let's do it again and again and again and again.
Let's get into the real estate aspect of things. So you got in that game through really riding off the coattail, which I love, and learning through experience, but someone else's business before just blindly starting your own. So right. What has that, it's investment real estate, I assume, in the US. Curious if that's also global, but what does that look like in terms of building the business and then also current revenue streams?
Yeah. And so when I first got started in this, I bought 8 rental properties right off the bat, use hard money, private money, fix them up, refinance them out into, the traditional model. And then I kept them and I cash flowed them. And that allowed me to quit my corporate job and sort of more focus on it. And, looking back, one of the things, and I tell everyone this, I wish I would have done different, is I wish I would have kept my job longer, because I was making very good money, $120,000, $150,000 by the time I'm bonused out. And I had great credit and I had earning power. And I quit that because I had this idea that I wanted to start my own business. And I think it was a little bit premature. And so I could have got more done if I would have kept my job and then actually had a plan to quit. And I see so many people doing that right now. I want to quit my job. And then they have no idea what it means to be an entrepreneur, to be a business owner. And then they fail. And then the momentum just stops. And it has all of this emotional impact on you. Am I good enough? And it just really affects people emotionally. And so I'm a big advocate of telling people, have a plan. Don't quit your job. Use your job to leverage buying assets such as rental real estate. And the other thing around specifically rental real estate is I tell people, there's all of these strategies out there that say you can do it with none of your own money and none of your own credit. And I've been doing it for 20 years. And I tell people the only people who should be doing no money down deals are people with money. Now that's my personal opinion, because I see the risk that they take on and they don't even know what they're getting into. So a property may cash flow $300 to $500, but if you bought it and you don't have any money and an AC goes out or the tenant quits paying or it needs a roof or there's a leak, I've had it all. And so I had to learn that firsthand. You need to have plenty of cash in the bank when you're doing real estate because it's slow. It's you can't sell it fast. And if you do want to sell it fast, you're going to take a huge discount on it. And, there's a lot of people out there selling the dream of real estate and they don't give the full context of it. Now, at the same time, I don't think there's a better asset class to build wealth than real estate, right? I've seen nothing that can compete against it on a risk-adjusted long-term basis. If you're set up financially, you have cash in the bank, you have high earning capacity, right? Meaning you have a job or a business or something to earn that money. So you're not having to be fully leveraged or JVing and getting a small piece of the pie. And that's just, over 20 plus years and helping thousands of people, you start to see patterns. And that's one of the biggest patterns I've seen.
So take us along what the journey has looked like for you. So now you have a portfolio of homes, you have your own separate business, but you started with, it sounds like, leaving your job, accumulating a few homes just through cash that you had in the bank. So what did the journey to, it sounds like a few decades later, what has that journey looked like in order for you to really scale as an entrepreneur and have various different businesses?
Yeah. So I would say first, I had to learn how to make money. Like I didn't know how to make money. I knew how to get a job. I knew how to buy some rental properties. And I did that with none of my own money. realistically. I spent my money on an education program to learn how to do that with no money. And so even those first 8 houses, I had zero of my own money in it, which was really cool. But when it came time to those big expenses, I had to put it on a credit card. And so what I did first was increase my earning capacity. And I became very good at sales and marketing, because without sales, money does, like, there's no money transaction. And that was really hard for me because I was a socially awkward finance guy. I was not a people person. I was not the person that could hop on a podcast like this and have a conversation. I was scared of the world. And so I spent so much time in personal development. Years, I'm still in it today. I coach twice a week. I'm always in a book, and I focus probably more on that than I do the intellectual side of things. And there's a great study that came out. They said 80 to 90% of your success is dependent on your emotional intelligence, and that your intellectual intelligence gets you into the room. But if you can't advance in your emotional intelligence, you're going to be entry level all day long. And I've found that true. And so what I really focus on, the more success that I have, the less I'm in the weeds. I'm doing less. And so I'm having people I have a whole team of CPAs and bookkeepers. I don't even know how to use QuickBooks. I mean, I can get in there and I get reports, but we have a financial services firm. I'm not the QuickBooks guy. I'm the high-end partner level founding member that tells the team where to go and what to do. And then I leverage their skill sets. And so what I've learned is how to inspire other people to want to come along with me. And I'm very proud to say I've never had anybody quit on me. Now, I've had to fire people, but what I've learned is inspiring my staff, my team, to want to come to work for them, not for me. And so what we do with each of our team members is I say, what do you want out of life? How much money do you want? Where do you want to travel? What does your dream life look like? And I get that picture, and then I help them create a plan inside of my business that says, if you do this, you can get what you want. And then I just get out of their way. And that's really been a huge revelation, because I'm here and I don't want to be the guy. I used to want to be the guy. Today, I just want to be in the background and building the businesses, inspiring people, and being able to take a month or two off on my motorcycle, which is, you can't do that if you're the guy at the front of the room all the time. And so as I transition from the front of the room to I call it the back of the room, I give that space to the next person to get developed in. And so that's what I look for today is I look for great people that have a great service or product that want to be at the front of the room, and then I build a business around them.
So interesting. I have faced that a few different times in my business, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs have, when you're looking to bring somebody on and it's just like, is this about something else? Because usually it's not initially going to be about them really caring about your business nearly as much as you do. So I think that is a very interesting perspective of not only how much money do you want, but what do you want out of life, and how can you grow in this role so that it is your dream role, that it's not just a paycheck.
Yeah. And so what I do, I ask them, I say, what do you want to get trained and developed in? And some people are like, ooh, I have one team member. She's like, I want to run my own team. I'm like, what does that look like? And then I figure out, because we do full service business development. So we do finance, operations, sales, and marketing. So I can put them anywhere they want. And as long as they, everybody's remote. I got people all over the world. And so they have to be obsessed with something. That's what I found. Like, be obsessed with AI, or be obsessed with finance, or be obsessed with sales. And then I buy them coaching programs, and I buy them education, because if they're not growing, I've learned that personally through myself, is if I'm not growing, I'm going to get depressed. I'm going to get stagnant. I'm not going to be inspired. And so I think the human in us, like the human being, is made to evolve. And if we're not growing, we're going to get stagnant. We're going to get uninspired. We're going to, emotionally, we're not going to be able to manage life, because we were made to grow. And I want them to grow. And I give them clear-cut metrics. If you do this, you make that. And guess what? You get this much vacation, go out, travel the world. I don't care if you work remotely. Live a life that lights you up. So when you do come to work, you're inspired and you're inspiring the people around you.
Are you interested in becoming a global citizen and living a lifestyle by design in a country that aligns with you? If this is a lifestyle that you're seeking to create, we can help. Whether it be multiple residencies, citizenships, bank accounts, trust or company formations, we operate in 30 plus of the most tax-friendly jurisdictions around the globe to get you structured properly. Head to the link in the show notes to learn more and to get your global citizen journey underway today.
On that note, pivoting slightly, I like to call it lifestyle design. I think everyone has their own term and definition for it, but I think you know what I mean, and listeners definitely know what I mean when I say that. How do you prioritize, manage, and systematize your life and business while also because quite honestly, a lot of entrepreneurs are listening and they also want a similar life to what you and I have, where we're traveling the world full-time, part-time, whatever fits within our lifestyle design plan. But it's a lot to be moving maybe every few months, maybe even every few weeks. I've done that. It was kind of crazy. I'm sure you have too. Running a business, running a team, like there's so many moving pieces. And I think that travel aspect, I mean, entrepreneurship on its own is difficult, but then when you add that travel aspect, which is the lifestyle aspect, that's important to people like us, but it just makes it exponentially more difficult.
Yeah. So we went almost 3.5 years of moving every 2 to 4 months. And, so we'd work during the week, take the weekends off, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes go out and explore the local, wherever we were. Sometimes we take a week or two off and, go on a big trip, but mainly it's, you work and then on the weekends you hang out or whatever. And so the biggest challenge for me is understanding the business. And so I'm in a business where I'm in front of people 6 days a week. So I run masterminds. I run a community of real estate investor entrepreneurs where we meet every day, just coaching, mentorship, guidance, boardroom calls, stuff like that. And so I needed fast internet. I needed a quiet place. I needed great internet connectivity. And so there are all of these things that I needed. And I needed a professional background because we're selling a $23,000+ mastermind. It's like I can't come in from a closet, right? So that was one of my biggest challenges, is consistently being in a professional environment where we could do something like this. And it was quiet and it fit all those parameters. And then we tried going overseas for a little bit. So we spent 3 months in Thailand and 3 months in Bali and a little bit of time in Italy. And I've done Kenya, I've done Dubai, London, like all of those. And it wrecked me, like from a sleep schedule. And so, but that was my business. And so if you're doing that type of business where you need to be in front of a camera, it's hard to operate on that. If you're doing something where it doesn't matter what time you work, because there's this whole world of online businesses, digital nomad businesses. Are you working for someone else? Are you working for yourself? Are you taking sales calls? Are you doing content? Like, what does it look like? And I think my coaching advice to people listening would be, understand the business that you're growing into, and then you create that lifestyle around it. And so the lifestyle I live today, I spent years on it before I actually even started traveling. And so I knew getting into this, I wanted to travel, which meant I need to learn online business. I need to learn automations. I need to learn CRMs. I need to learn websites, all of that stuff that allows me to actually do this remotely. And then when the time came, I was ready, right? I was ready. And so I would say create a plan. That's the biggest thing, a plan and a budget. Those are the two things that almost nobody has. And my humble opinion is why the majority of people fail, because they don't know the math. They don't know the money that's coming in versus going out. And then they get caught up and they run out of money. And if you just take a little bit of time and create a plan by listening to podcasts like this and seeking out wisdom and joining masterminds and creating a plan that you can actually implement and then putting numbers around it, you will be so far ahead of the vast majority of people. And it will actually go faster because you did the due diligence to stay on track.
Let's talk about that budget aspect. I'm sure you're the same, like, don't love the word budget, but just having some sort of financial plan and priority when you are looking to, or already in, maybe you're just thrown in this lifestyle. What are some top tips, resources that you would have for somebody listening to really not budgeting, but really get their finances in order for this type of travel entrepreneur lifestyle?
Yeah. And so, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, budget, financial projections. That's the world I grew up in, financial models. I forecasted stuff out 10 years in the future. And so that is my skill set. And I will tell you, I run a bookkeeping, tax service, financial consulting. The vast majority of people don't know their finances, even if they have a bookkeeper. And the challenge is that is the ultimate feedback. That is it. And if you understand how to interpret your finances, and you don't have to know how to do your books, like you don't have to get it down into know accounting and journal entries at that level, pay someone to do that. My team does it. I don't even do that stuff. But I know how to look at the stuff and go, oh, we actually made money this month. And oh, we're expected to make money next month and the next month and the next month. And I'm flabbergasted that the vast majority of people don't even know how to do that. To the point that I just took on a client from Australia, and she was on, and we were looking at her P&L, and it clearly showed she was losing money every month, and she didn't even know it, right? And so that, I just, given my background, I think finance is the ultimate treasure map. I'm going to use that word because it will tell you everything you need to know if you know how to interpret it. And so, it may not have to be you, but get somebody to prepare it, and prepare it on at least a weekly basis. The more money you make, specifically, and then the other thing I tell people is have 12 months worth of cash reserves, because you can turn anything around in 12 months. I mean, you can fire people, you can cut them off, you can start a new product line, whatever it is. But having the stress of living month to month or 2, 3, 4 months out, there's a stress there that it doesn't allow you to live that life that you're really looking for while you're traveling. So you're traveling and you're anxious about, can I pay my next bill, or can I get to the next city, or whatever it is, because you didn't manage your finances well. And so, I have free resources. We can put links down there. I have a free software that helps them do that, free masterminds, free master classes, because I just get so, like, I want to help everyone and I can't. And so I just created a bunch of free stuff and said, here, use it.
Let's talk about some tax planning strategies, whether in the real estate world or otherwise. Specific to Americans for your clients, but when an American, let's say as an example, is looking to start a new life overseas, maybe they have some real estate in the U.S. What are some of those strategies that you, of course, not more advanced, but let's dive into some of the basic strategies that you see that are helpful for those looking to live abroad or expatriate?
Yeah. And so I would say there, and you use the word that I would like, levels. There's entry level, there's intermediate, and then there's very advanced level. And what I see is first off, you have to understand what tax strategy is and what entities do, because I see people getting sold on these visions that they need all of these entities and all of these structures that cost lots of money to set up and then maintain, and they're not making any money. And they don't have any assets. And so we have to understand that an entity serves two purposes: to mitigate taxes, which means, first off, you have to make money. And the second one is to mitigate risk, which means preventing someone from suing you. And so in the world of taxes, what we're looking to do is decrease that tax burden. And so once you start traveling, or once you start a business, that's one of the best tax write-offs to begin with, is the starting of a business, because now your cell phone and your computers and a lot of the stuff that typically would be spent with pre-tax or after-tax dollars can now be purchased with pre-tax dollars because they're considered expenses. And so that is one of the easiest things. Buying all of your, we travel full time. We live on the road, and almost all of it is a tax write-off, because we have a very, very advanced trust that is set up. It's called an irrevocable, non-grantor, complex discretionary spendthrift trust. And it costs a bunch of money to create, and maintain. And so you need to be making a lot of money to have. That's the deep end of the pool. But back to the kiddie pool here. I mean, just keeping track of your expenses in your finances, so that when you do meet with a bookkeeper, a tax person, that they can actually give you coaching on it, because there's strategies that are very broad and there's very specific strategies. And I want to articulate, there's a difference between somebody that does your taxes and a tax strategist. Most people have a tax preparer. They take your information, whatever it is, and they enter it into some forms, and then they give you the tax return. Me and my team, we're tax strategists. So we're working with people now for 2-3 years out. We're working with people now for the end of the year. You're not going to get us a call in November, December, and say, what should I do with my taxes? That's not us. We proactively look for that. And the biggest and the most easiest tax benefit for everyone is rental real estate. Keyword, if you qualify for it, because the key word is depreciation. And if you don't qualify for that, and so there's different ways to qualify for that, but essentially you have to be so many hours in the industry or full-time in real estate to be able to gain from that depreciation component. And so what we do there is we have one of the spouses will manage the portfolio of rentals. The other one will be the business owner of real estate. So there's fun ways to do that. And there's just a complexity that is beyond the scope of this conversation for that. But that's a great long-term strategy. And then the other one is, and Robert Kiyosaki talks about this all the time, just refinancing out your debt. You don't pay taxes on refinances. And so instead of selling a property, right, just refinance it out. Now you got to make sure it cash flows and stuff like that. But those are two of the most simplest, high return on time, high return on that. And you're not going to have to pay somebody uber amounts of money to help do it. So that depreciation rentals, I would say that's more intermediary. But for the entry level stuff, keep track of your expenses, meet with a great bookkeeper / tax strategist, and they'll tell you how to maneuver and the big thing is, I've learned too, is recording, right? Specifically, what was that used for? What was that used for? Was that business? Was it personal? Was it this? Was it that? And you can change the context of stuff, and you can make something personal to business by, for example, putting your family on your board of directors. Now everything you do is a business meeting, not a family outing, stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. Such great strategies that anyone could take advantage of, especially Americans. Okay, so there's a lot more that we could definitely dive into, and a lot of directions this conversation could go in. Before we close off, is there anything that you feel like is important to add into this conversation that we have not yet touched on?
I would say expectations. When I got into this world, I remember I quit my high-paying job and I took a consulting job just to get me some time. So I went to working like 80 to 100 hours a week to working 40 hours a week. And for me, that was like a part-time job, 7 to 3:30, phone shut off, so I could work on my work on my business. And in my mind, I was like, I'm going to be out of here in 3 months. I told my buddy that hired me, I said, just so you know, I'm not going to be here that long. 18 months later, right? 18 months later. And so have proper expectations about the reality of this, and hang around people that actually want you to win and are more interested, I'll put it this way, are more interested in you winning than using you to help them win, right? Because I've been in those circles, and the coaching and the direction that I got wasn't the best for me. It was the best for them to help them move their business forward. And that was a learning experience in itself. And so that's why I'm such an advocate. And I tell people, I could tell you the truth because that's what's best for you, or I could tell you what you want to hear, which is best for me. And so I'm a coach and an educator at my heart. And so I tell people what they need to hear. And it's not always flattering. It's not, it's like the reality, but then they have something they can work with. And I'm not just selling them a pipe dream. And then I would say, understand there's two principles. We have 5 principles in my company. The first 2 I think are extremely, you could get by with them too, which is intention and personal responsibility. What are you doing in your life? Like, why do you wake up? Why do you go to work? Why do you want to be a digital nomad? Why do you want to make $10,000 a month? That's sort of the number I hear all the time. If I could just make $10,000 a month. You don't need $10,000 a month to live this life. You could do it on 2, like $2,000 a month. You could live a great life traveling. Obviously you're not going to get the best of the best, but hey, you're going to be traveling. And that's what I started off $3,000 a month when I first quit my job because I didn't need it. I didn't have a family. I was a single guy. And then the second one is personal responsibility. If you make everything your responsibility, there's nothing that can stop you I've been through it all. I've lost a lot of money. Biggest deal I've ever lost money on is $500,000. And it's easy to blame everyone else. And it's hard to say, oh, it's my fault. But when you say, oh, it's my fault, or I don't want to say my fault, I'm taking responsibility, right? Because there's a difference there. When you take responsibility, you're in the driver's seat of your life now, and you can actually do something. So if you know where you're going and you take personal responsibility for getting there, there's nothing that can stop you. And then I throw a couple extra in there. And so we say integrity, right? Do the right thing, whatever it is. Dream big and do the work. And, live by those principles. They can get you through anything.
Love it. So I do want to ask you, because you touched on community there. And I mean, myself, even personally with my partner and I, it's difficult when we travel to really find a like-minded community. So I'm curious what that looks like for you, because I, probably similar to you, I'm very picky, quite honestly, about who I spend my time with and who I'm giving my time and energy to. And so I always try to seek out, and I think Medellin's a great place for it, but definitely not every destination is, where you can find similar entrepreneurial minded business owner who also enjoy traveling, that type of person. But by no means is that everywhere that we travel to. So I'm curious what that looks like for you in terms of community.
Yeah. So almost all of my communities, because I only live someplace for 2 to 4 months historically, right? So it's hard to build that in person. I only speak English. I'm taking Spanish lessons. My wife is Puerto Rican, so she speaks Spanish. So but when you're working 5 days a week and then you take the weekends off to enjoy it's hard to build the in-person stuff. So most of my communities are online. And so I've started my own community for that own, for my own purposes, sort of. And then I sold in people in access to my community. And so I would say look online. There's so many of them. I just was on a call today with a guy, very similar digital and nomad community, very curated. You have to go through an interview process. And then there's other ones, that are free. And so the idea is, once you identify where you're at and where you want to go, you can start going to look for these communities, and they're everywhere online once you start looking. And then, I've sort of settled down here in Medellin. We're getting ready to buy a house. We're going to buy a farm. And so I've started looking more for that in-person stuff. So this weekend, Friday, I'm going to a dinner. They're having the head of Think and Grow Rich come down from the United States. He's going to speak. There's other, digital nomad type people. I spoke with the owner. It's called the Entrepreneur House. He started this idea because he had the same problem we did. We love to travel, but we like community, and it's sort of hard to do both. And so he built something, and they're everywhere if you just seek them out.
I love that. That's so interesting. So please include a link to your community. If it's something that is public that others could apply to, then let's include that in the show notes below. And where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, the best spot is learnandgrowrich.net. And so I used to sell a $23,000 education. And what I've learned is I just give it all away now. Like, all of my master classes are absolutely free. And there's a couple of reasons I do that. The first reason is most people have no idea what they're getting into. And so they think they want to do this. They think they want to do real estate. They think they want to do business. And then they get into it and they're just like, oh my God, I'm not ready. And so by giving it away to them free, and it's like very thought out, very thorough. I was just launched a finance masterclass, and I give them my software for free. because I want those people to be helped, because I had to pay a lot of money to get that entry level help. And I couldn't take it all in. And so it took me a while. And so my idea is, if I give everything away for free, eventually they're going to need me, and they want to come to the masterminds, and they're going to need a CPA, and they're going to need me in some sort. Then I get to work with the people that can actually afford me and are ready for me, as opposed to trying to drag people through this world. And so everybody wins. And now it takes a little bit more time on my end because I'm giving everything away for free. But this is a long-term game for me. This is what I'm doing the rest of my life. So.
You've just listened to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I would appreciate if you share this podcast on your socials. And of course, be sure to tag me. And don't forget to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me on this global citizen journey, and I'll see you in the next episode.